Story 1. This happened a few weeks ago, not to me, but to a coworker of mine. I'm not sure if this counts as entitled, but I just wanted to share this story. I work at a McDonald's in my town. I open early in the morning to keep the store clean for all our wonderful customers, especially with everything that's going on. You're welcome. Anyway, around 10:30 am, we start serving lunch only on weekdays, and we quickly get busy. A lot of parents order Happy Meals for their children, along with a small drink or coffee for themselves. I've noticed this pattern. My coworker, who we'll call Sam, was working at the first window where she takes orders and processes payments to keep the drive-thru moving. Around 11 am, an older gentleman, possibly a grandfather, came back to the drive-thru. Sam opened the window. Disclaimer, I may be paraphrasing the conversation. This is just how my coworker described it. Sam asked, "Is there something wrong?" The grandfather replied, "Yes, I just ordered this Happy Meal for my son or grandson. He can't play with this toy." The grandfather threw the toy at Sam. It was a little Black Panther toy. Our store, along with all the others worldwide, was doing a promotion with Marvel and their superheroes. So the first toys of the week, at that time, were Black Panther. Sam looked at the grandfather and asked, "Is there something wrong with it? Is it broken? I can easily replace it for you." The grandfather responded, "No, he can't play with it because he's African American." I honestly don't remember what happened next. I assume Sam gave him a different toy that we had available or just said, "Sorry, that's all we have." Whatever happened, Sam kept the line moving. In my opinion, the grandfather's actions were unwarranted, but customers come and go. I don't think Sam will ever see him again. I hope you enjoyed this story, and I apologize if this is the wrong subreddit to share it. Story 2. I apologize if this feels more like a rant than a story. I'm still upset from the whole ordeal. I'm also on mobile, so apologies for the formatting. I was raised by a single father with whom I rarely saw eye to eye. He tried to mold me into his views of traditional masculinity, the good and the bad. He praised me when I excelled in certain roles, like being a handyman or football player, but was dismissive when I cried or was bullied at school. He took his role as the disciplinarian very seriously, even during the holiday season. My dad always throws a party for our family every Thanksgiving and Christmas. He provides great food, and some of my relatives are pretty decent. However, my dad is a terrible host. He invites everyone, including people who are toxic, to be around. Every year, there's always some argument over the pettiest things. All vegans get is a salad? The kids shouldn't watch anything with Santa in it. A gift card? You couldn't have just sent me money. It's as if they're obsessed with making everything perfect, and anything not going their way is unacceptable. On top of that, my dad makes the parties all about him. He tries to micromanage everything, from the movies we watch to what we talk about. The worst part is when he brags about me, making it sound like he molded me into his views on traditional masculinity. He'll brag about how I was the MVP in youth football, even though I hated it, or that I excelled in martial arts, even though that's not why I enjoyed it. When I mention achievements I'm actually proud of, like taking up creative writing or reading a new book, he pays no attention. My dad says he's happy I have a girlfriend, but also that he's glad I didn't turn out a different way. As far as gifts go, he only gives me things he approves of, whether I want them or not. New boxing gloves or clay pigeons? Absolutely. A gaming console or books? Not so much. Basically, I've come to associate the holidays with my dad asserting more dominance than usual and being forced to interact with toxic family members. Fortunately for me, my girlfriend's dad invited me to spend both Thanksgiving and Christmas with them. Finally, I think I'll get to enjoy myself for a change. Then, earlier today, my dad called, asking when I'm coming over for Thanksgiving. I told him I already said I wasn't coming and that I'd be going to my girlfriend's place. He said things like, "You always spend the holidays with your old man," or "Your cousins like seeing you, you know." My cousins haven't come over for the holidays in years. I tried arguing that inviting family over might not be a good idea due to the pandemic. People like my grandpa or Uncle Devin are at a higher risk. He dismissed my concern, saying, "You don't seem worried about giving your girlfriend the virus." I've tested negative, and no one coming over is at high risk. Then, my dad went on this tirade. "Oh, I see how it really is. You still think I'm a terrible father, right? You'd rather abandon me and your whole family when all we want is to spend the holidays with you? I'm offering you free food and family time, but you'd rather waste it than be grateful. I'm even allowing you into my home. You're welcome, by the way. I've told my dad many times how bad he makes me feel, about myself or even just in general. He'd argue, I gave you everything you needed to survive in this tough world. If I made you feel that bad, how'd you get so good at karate? You wouldn't know how to get a girlfriend if it weren't for me. In other words, my feelings are invalid because I succeeded in some aspects of my life. Seeing as we weren't getting anywhere, I hung up. I hate it when my dad guilt trips me like this because, as much as everyone tells me he's wrong, there's still some part of me that feels guilty. I get that Christmas and Thanksgiving are about family, but for once, I'd like to be with a family that's actually fun to be around. Others have said I should be grateful I even have a dad, let alone one who's taken care of me. That's like saying having a dog that barks and bites you is better than having no pet at all. I just want a nice holiday season for once. Thanks for hearing me out. I don't have many other outlets to vent outside of Reddit, and I'd rather not dump all this on my girlfriend. For further context, I'm 22, in my second year of community college. My dad is paying for most of my expenses, and I'm under his health insurance. He's frequently threatened to cut me off from both, but hasn't done so yet. Also, my girlfriend's mother passed away this summer, so I want to be there to support her during the holidays. Story 3. Thankfully, this isn't work-related this time. Yesterday after work, I decided to take the easy and quick route for dinner. I stopped by an American-Mexican fast food drive-thru and got in line. I placed my order, turned around the bend, and waited to move up in line. 5 minutes passed, and the line hadn't moved. Okay, I just figured someone ahead made a large order. No big deal, right? Unfortunately, I was wrong. I started hearing a car horn go off a few times. One of the fast food employees walked over to my car and said, "I'm very sorry for the wait. There's a slight accident at the end of the drive-thru, and you'll be waiting here a bit. Your order has been completed and will be brought out to you shortly." I asked for the reason and was told, "There's a large SUV ahead that didn't leave enough room for the exit lane to move past." The woman trying to exit went anyway and hooked her SUV to the back bumper of the other. Currently, a tow truck driver is trying to break them loose. I ate my food, and the driver decided to tow them out of the way about 20 minutes later after failing to separate them. I exited and sat in the parking lot to watch for about 5 minutes. The SUV blocking the exit was an old Ford Excursion, and the SUV attached was a newer Lexus. I couldn't hear what was being said, but the two women appeared to be in a heated argument about who was at fault, while their kids seemed to be getting along with each other on their phones. There were 5 kids, 3 with dark brown hair and the other 2 with blonde hair. I've been around a few accidents over the years, and although people can be upset that their cars are damaged, I've never seen 2 adults standing on the side yelling at each other instead of being relieved that no one was hurt. Especially for minor damage, bumpers aren't outrageously expensive. I'm starting to wonder if it's just the area I live in. Story 4. My aunt, my dad's sister, has always been a textbook example of an entitled person. When I was a kid, she never missed an opportunity to make me feel like I was worthless. From thinly veiled insults to outright verbal and emotional abuse, she did everything she could to try to break me. Of course, the disgust she felt for me and the faults she found in my dad's parenting never stopped her from mooching off of him or asking for favors without ever giving anything in return. She and her husband considered their son to be a gift from the heavens, and he grew up to be a narcissistic bully who loved to torment me, even though I was 7 years younger than him. My mom passed away when I was 1 year old, and both my aunt and grandmother had been abusive to her as well. But that's another story for another time. This story is about the time she, along with her son, ruined my 10th birthday. This incident resulted in me being put off birthdays and deciding never to celebrate them again. I just couldn't see them as a cause for celebration. My entire extended family, including my aunt, uncle, and cousin, along with some other relatives, were at our home, and my dad and stepmom had gone out to run some errands. My cousin had invited some of his friends over, even though my dad and stepmom didn't know them. My dad allowed them to come after my aunt whined incessantly about how her son would be bored if his friends weren't there. I remember sitting in my room, playing with my dog. I knew my cousin would be downstairs, and I usually did what I could to avoid him. At that time, I suffered from a pretty bad stutter, and when I was upset or angry, it only got worse. This was something my cousin loved to make fun of, and of course, my birthday would be no different. He demanded that I come downstairs to talk to his friends. When I refused, his mother told me to stop being rude and do as I was told. I was a powerless kid, so I really had no choice. I went down to the living room, and my cousin introduced me to his friends in his usual condescending way, as the birthday girl. He handed me a novel and told me to read out loud. I tried to read properly, but failed. I was surrounded by judgmental stares, which made me nervous. I stuttered, which is exactly what my cousin was hoping for. He and his friends began to snicker. I got angry and stopped reading. My cousin called me a freak, and his friends looked at me as though I were on display at a zoo exhibit. I wanted to prove them wrong that I wasn't a freak, and that I could read. I tried reading again. This time, because I was angry, the stutter was much worse. My cousin decided to mock my stutter, and all but one of his friends roared with laughter. The one who didn't actually notice my tears and told the others to knock it off. He asked if I was okay. My cousin told him not to bother, it was just a joke, and that I was just an oversensitive baby. My rage was boiling over, and I threw the book at my cousin's face and stomped out. My aunt had seen what had happened and decided to pull me by my hair and drag me back to the living room. She told me to apologize to my cousin. I refused. She said I needed to be taught a lesson for being a brat. I tried to tell her what had happened. She chuckled and said, "So what? He's your cousin, and he's older than you. You need to respect him. Now apologize." I refused again, this time with a, "No, I hate you. I hate all of you," all the while crying and shaking with anger. This didn't sit well with my aunt, and she slapped me before asking why I didn't just die in the womb. She told me I was a troublemaker, just like my mother had been. She said she knew the day I was born that there was something wrong with me, that an evil person like my mother couldn't possibly produce a normal child. That was it. I balled up my fist and punched my aunt so hard that I busted her lip. By then, all the other relatives had heard the commotion and gathered in the living room. The moment my fist connected with my aunt was when my dad and stepmom walked in through the front door. My aunt started fake crying. She berated my father for not raising me right and went on and on about how I was a violent, ill-mannered brat. The other relatives also expressed their disappointment in me. My dad asked me what I thought I was doing. I tried to tell him what my cousin had done and what my aunt had said about my mother. Unfortunately, my stutter reared its ugly head again, and all that came out of my mouth was gibberish. My tears were flowing again. In the meantime, my cousin had decided to take all his friends and leave. I was punished for my beastly conduct. My birthday celebration was canceled. My dad called my friends and asked them not to come over. I didn't cut any cake, and the presents I was supposed to receive from my parents were put away. I was banished to my room and stayed there for the rest of the day. I ate lunch and dinner alone. The next morning, no one spoke to me. I was given my breakfast platter, which I ate in my room. That afternoon, my cousin's friend, the one who had told the others to stop bullying me, came over. He told my dad what my cousin had done and what my aunt had said. My dad sat me down and apologized to me, but added that it was still wrong of me to punch my aunt. I just sat there silently, emotionally numb. My dad kept telling me he loved me and that he was sorry. I just coldly stared at him. My stepmom suggested a belated birthday celebration. I refused. I told them I didn't want a birthday party and that I wouldn't celebrate my birthday ever again. I kept my word. Every year since that day, my parents would ask me what I wanted for my birthday, and I always replied, "Nothing at all." I asked them not to get any cake and not to invite any guests. The day I was born now meant nothing to me. Even now, after all these years, I don't celebrate my birthday. Instead, I celebrate the day I landed the job that enabled me to move away from my family and start a new life. I consider it the day of my rebirth. It was the day I was able to leave all the pain and anger behind and could plan for a life that I would live on my own terms. My aunt and uncle's poor parenting ended up costing them dearly. If you want to know what became of them, let me know in the comments. It's pretty satisfying.